you may not, but inherently you can still predict it. And I'll tell you an example out of both Oak Ridge and White 12. We were involved with some work with Oak Ridge, and then we got funded for a PDRD, I think it was 2-3 years ago. And you would say that we cannot predict the turnover at Oak Ridge or the turnover of people at White 12. I got a paper and work that illustrates that within a very, very small margin of error, we can predict the number of people that are going to leave White 12 or the number of people that are going to leave ORN. And not generally by electricians, by engineers, by managers. And if we could do that, how is it that we cannot predict? We may not understand every detail, but we do understand the critical variables that we can bring in and we can talk about. Is that fair enough? So there is my little bit of a disagreement with Chapter 7. But before we go into Chapter 7, I want to kind of show you something, and there's two purposes for it. One is to talk a little bit more about these issues. The second is to provide you, at least from the Lean course and other courses that we have, the fact that you have a tremendous amount of insight into those particular issues. Is that okay? So, we're going to talk about a couple of things, because where I focused primarily, remember I said that I am kind of disappointed in our education, how we're educating you and how I was educated, because they never really spent a lot of time on this. They really never spent a lot of time on this. They addressed it, but never spent a lot of time. And then over a period of time, this is where the majority of the people have focused in on, and later on, to some extent, we started looking at information systems. But if, in my mind, it's the paradigm that defines the goal, that defines the systems, that defines the information system, I'm missing the first two parts of it, it leaves me a little bit vulnerable, doesn't it? Because then I'm not doing strategic things. What am I doing? Tactical things. So, I want to talk just about for 10 minutes on these two, but I want to primarily spend a lot of time on this, because Chapter 7 says that everything that we are going to discuss today here is incorrect. That's not exactly what I'm saying, but you could go wrong with it. I want to know a little bit about your paradigm. Tell me about paradigm. It says transcending paradigms. I don't know what that is. Fancy word. All I got out of that is there cannot be a paradigm, that you have to be flexible enough over a period of time to adjust to different paradigms. And we're talking about individually, we're talking about your workplace. Tell me, how does that work? Because if I know my paradigm, that becomes a source of all the things that I put into an organization that define that organization. Go ahead, please.
Well, I was telling you briefly about that cabinet factory.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still, after 2 years, only making 30 cabinets a week. And he says every time he tries to, I said, well, you know, what happens on Monday? How do the guys know they're on track for 30 cabinets a week on Monday? How do they know it on Tuesday? They have these meetings. Everybody's pretty interactive. They have a board. Mm-hmm. You know, trying to help them break it down to stay on track all through the week. And he has been wrapped around the axle on measuring number of cabinets per week. And every time he tries to, you know, talk to his guys about, well, you've only got 12 cabinets. Well, some are more complicated. Some are, you know, have 7 drawers on them instead of 2. So, you know, just kind of, the word paradigm came in my brain. I don't know if it was last week or not, but I said, well, why don't you break down the weekly goal on the number of drawer faces or the number of openings in the cabinet, mm-hmm. and get rid of the excuse of, you know, the complexity of the different cabinets. And then you can drive, you know, that whatever that number is, you're the cabinet expert, however you break it up, you don't have to measure it by total cabinets.
Fair enough.
That's a paradigm you're stuck in.
Fair enough. I'm going to ask you this question because I think it comes from you, and this relates to what we had taught you last year. What do you believe in? What drives you every day to behave in a certain way at home and a certain way at work? What is that paradigm that can motivate you? Here's a question. Whatever it is, majority of you are going to have a hard time defining it because you don't know. That is a weakness that I sense. And if we cannot define that paradigm, and again, I'm relaying it to work, but I'm relaying more to your thing, and I can't even define the paradigm that I am using to define my life at home and at work. Are you not without goals? Are you not without a vision and a mission, or I don't know what that is? A path that you have to find. Now you're supposed to, again, you're supposed to fight and say, no, I know exactly who I am, I know exactly my paradigms. Let's say that, somebody say that.
I'm pretty comfortable with mine.
Huh?
I'm comfortable with mine.
Carla, raise your hand.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
they'll tell me you're just messed up.
Tell me, what is your paradigm?
Well, pay the bills, mortgage, obviously, is a requirement. So that's a goal of mine. I was raised.
We're not talking about goals.
No, but that's part of it, right? You know, I know I have to do
I
this.
want you to tell me.
Right. But what I'm saying is I was raised in a fairly conservative family of farmers. Well, we weren't really farmers, but they came from farmers. Very, very high work ethic. Very, I guess, a very high self-sufficient nature, right? You know, farm during Depression, they didn't even know Depression was going on. So that's what my roots are. So I was raised with that, and I continue to have it today. So my work ethic is very high, and I go in every day with a level of expectations that exceed my performance, which is kind of based on the system I work in.
Okay.
So, but mine is pretty consistent, hasn't changed, never will. Doesn't matter what I do, I go in and attack every day with, you know,
Right.
trying to fight, trying to get, do a good job. But on the other hand, if I won the lottery, and that all might go away, and I would sit at home on my front porch doing nothing and be happy about it.
Yes, sir.
We actually talked about this in my organization this past week. Over the last few weeks, the fire department has had some high visibility issues happen at the plant.
Is there a little flood or something?
Yeah, sorry about that. And I was talking with the fire chief and who executes the work for my organization. I said, we need to, we're going to focus so much on these little issues and these things, and there'll be discipline for someone. And I said, my vision is to be the model. I said, we're in this great experiment with CNS, and they're looking at ways work is done at Pantex and at Y12. And I said, my preference is to be the model, and I think all of our goals should tie to that. And I said, that's just personal, unless people jump onto it, and then it becomes a shared vision or a paradigm, the lens we look through. But all of our goals should tie to that, and we have to get people to buy into that so that they think about that in their work and question situations that they don't know the answer to. And if they're dedicated to that, everything else should fall into place.
All right. I'm going to pick on one more person. Carla, pick on somebody. Huh?
Jill.
You're ready.
My paradigm is fear of failing.
All right. Fear of failing? Okay, I thought it was going to be on this side, but that's good. Go ahead. Fear of failing.
That's it.
All right.
I don't want to fail, and unfortunately, it's not some big higher calling motivation. It's just I don't want to be here. So that's what drives me.
Watch this. I'm just going to treat you all as part of an organization. What I heard from you, if I am correct, is I want to be excellent in what I do, and I want to be the model. You're talking to me about the fact that you have a work ethic. Okay? You're talking about a fear of failing. Do we even have a common paradigm? But it should happen. I mean, at home you should have a common paradigm, and at work you should have a common paradigm. I remember, what, 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that, Mark, you brought in some information for us that relate to us what Y12 is. That, I think, is the source of the problem, because we are tacticians, but we don't have a really good idea of what we're going to apply our tactics to. And I don't disagree with each one of you that that is your paradigm. I can't question that paradigm. But if we, all of us work for ORNL or Y12, to some extent, should there not be some, it doesn't have to be identically the same, but should it not be very close to each other? And should it not be understood? The rest of all of this, in my opinion, comes from that idea. That idea, whatever it is, excellence, or work ethic, or the fact that I would even convert it, fear of failing is, I want to excel. If I want to take all of that, does that not drive everything else? Tell me, at ORNL, what is the paradigm for those that work at ORNL?
To produce science that makes the world a better place.
What's that?
To produce science that makes the world a better place.
What is it at Y12?
National security.
Hmm?
Defend the stockpile. National security.
What is it?
To be best in class and and provide excellence of customer service.
Can I tell you that I can tell you what UT tells me, but I'm not sure that I know. UT wants to be top 25 in research. I don't know what that means. That paradigm does not resonate with me. It does not inspire me, it does not drive me, it does not do all these. And I'm saying that on camera. So next week, if I'm not here, you have to realize that I'm just fired.
I've actually seen a change at Y12 where they're trying to get people more in connect with the paradigm. Because when I first started out there, it was so disjointed, people didn't really know what they were working on. And then all of a sudden there's this big push of like, hey, look at what we're doing, come tour this, come look at this, look at this process.
But here's what I see, and I hope that I'm not overextending my reach. I would like you to be the champions of being able to project whatever the paradigms are. That when you meet 5 other people and 10 other people and 20 other people, you say to them, we believe that this is what we are doing. And that drives everything else that you decide and work on in each of your projects. But I have never been to a project yet where we first started from the paradigm of what is it that we want to do. These paradigms develop these goals. What is it? What are goals? What is the functionalities? Who should be punished? Who should be rewarded? All right. And I'll tell you this, and it's not that I'm bragging, because I am not very happy with my performance. We get evaluated every year. And this year, we get 1 to 5. And I want to show you the difference. And this year, I got all 5s in every category. If you ask me, did I deserve all 5s? Because I feel that I have tremendous weaknesses that I have to correct over time if we are going to be the #1 lean program in the world. Those goals do not align with me even though the evaluation was whatever it was, it did not meet my own criteria. Yet, on the paradigm side, they want me to be top 25 researcher, and I don't know what that means. If I continue getting 5s, I am never going to be a top 25 researcher. So, these are, I think, important issues that I wanted you to discuss, because the greatest leverage does not exist here or here. It exists where? Here, at this moment. Okay? So I always want you to go, when you are working on projects, when you're going into meetings, you question not physically what you're changing, not the information that you're changing, but I want you to question, what is it that you're trying to do, and is that the right thing to do? Is that okay? Now, I want you to take you through the physical systems. Are we okay with that? We're going to talk about not the paradigm, not the goals. We're going to talk about the physical systems. And it says stock and flow structures. Remember you read that? It says the stock and flow structures, physical systems and nodes of interaction. I'm going to show you something, if I can, and I want you to tell me what you saw. Fair enough? Is that okay? All right. It's a manufacturing facility, but it doesn't have to be a manufacturing facility. And these are all the definitions. All right? Here's where we're going to start. I've got a system that allows me to calculate W0, which is the critical width, because that is equal to the bottleneck rate times the effective process time. That's an equation. So if I do that, because in majority of your physical systems, what is it that your stock is? What is the stock that you manage? Majority of you are managing what? Inventory. We don't manage humanity. We don't manage anything. We manage physical stuff, number of documents, number of parts, number of this, number of that. And here it says, because it talks about physical structures, and it says, my God, if I'm managing that stock that exists, I don't have to guess at it. I can actually calculate what that stock should be. Remember, it says size of the buffers and all that kind of stuff. So I do this, and I want you to see, because you've seen this before, that I have a manufacturing process, 4 things. Okay? These are identical tools in series. Each takes 2 hours per piece. There's no variability. So I want you to start asking the question, what do I know about that process? The process, that physical structure, now notice, you can be a general physician or you can be a surgeon. If you just generally talk about stuff, you can be a general physician, but you now are ready to become a surgeon. That when I look at the physical structure of an organization, I judge it by what? Flow, variation, and disruption. Is that correct? Say yes. I do not go into a system and think about what should I do. I judge that system by 3 components. Flow. Tell me about the flow of this. Flow is what? Is a single piece? Is it single piece flow? Is it balanced? What is the level of variation, and how much disruption do I have? When you go and design a process, you don't say, guys, what does the process do? You lay the process out, and this is what you discuss. In this case, do we have any variation? Say no.
He says no.
No. Do we have any disruption? Is it a single piece flow? You say yes, because I'm going to show it, and I'm going to balance it. This is perfection. You cannot have a system any better than that. I mean, there can't be a system better than that. Single piece flow, balanced, no variation, no disruptions. There does not exist a system like that, but that is your ideal goal. Okay? So when I do this, I want you to kind of show you this. Okay, and we can do this. And if I remember, you remember this, that if I did the same thing, I can calculate everything about it. Oh my God. Now, I'm going to show because I've got something else that I want to show you. What did you learn from that? It says physical structures. How are you going to show a physical structure? This book, the Systems Thinking book, does not tell you how to articulate a physical system. It just says, ooh, there's a physical system. How are you going to articulate a physical system?
We'll go back to factory physics.
You're going to draw a process map, whatever it is that you have to do to articulate it. So you lay it out, boom, 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 boom. Then what you question in that thing is this flow there? Is there flow there or not? No. Yes. Is the variation high or no? Yes, no. Is the disruption high or no? What could be the worst system that you could have? One that is not a single piece flow, one is not balanced, one that has a lot of variation, and one has a lot of disruptions. Is that correct? Majority of the processes that I've seen at ORNL and Y12 are that. Now, you're supposed to fight. No, you can't let me abuse you.
It's true. It's true. What you said is true.
No, but you can't. This is your home. You defend your home court. Why is it not fixed then? Why are they not fixed?
A lot of times the process isn't defined in the first place.
So let's assume that you go and define the process, which is very important. But nobody has the mindset to think about it from this perspective. Is that true or not?
Well, the changes are extremely difficult, you know, so even if you had hey, we could turn the system and make it better, at this point, you have a lot going against you as far as trying to prove it, so we really just work with what we have on a daily basis and do the best we can with it. So, you know, like with the UPF, maybe you have a chance there to do it right, for instance.
Okay, I think the challenge is not to wait for a green field. I think I agree with you. The challenge is, you know, if you don't do it, who else is going to do it? I mean, I'm not sure that what you are receiving, and I'm not sure, as I say, I'm a little bit disappointed that we have not worked on paradigms and things like that. But who else could look at the process and say, this is this way, or this is this way, this is excellent or not? I can articulate that process for you, I can look at the flow for you, I can look at the variation for you, and I can look at the disruptions. And by God, you have a high level of disruptions, you've got a high level of variation, and you got a, what? No balance. All right? And what happens? Your throughput, what happens to your throughput in that process?
Goes down.
Then what do? You seek resources. You up your resources. All right? Over a period of time, this thing goes down again. You increase your resources, and now what do you have?
Bankruptcy.
Massive amount
We don't
of
know.
oscillation.
We don't know. But I can tell you, because this is the discussion that we had last semester on lean. I want to refresh you. on this. You know, when you look at TV and they say you're losing manufacturing jobs, you're not just not losing manufacturing jobs. You're losing office jobs. You're losing medical jobs. You're losing every possible job that can exist is vulnerable, because here we're paying people what? $10, $12, $15, $18 an hour. In Mexico we're paying what? $3 a day. Do you believe, here's my belief, and I'm not sure that this is true, the universities in the next 20 years are not going to exist and are not going to be competitive in the form that they are today. Hospitals are not protected. Do you know at this moment that you could go to India at a much lower cost, stay at a hotel, have a nurse, driver picks you up, driver drops you off, and your cost is less than half of what your cost would be here? So this is not about projects. This is about saving what we have in this particular country. And it's not about manufacturing. It's about your jobs are vulnerable, my job is vulnerable. I believe that the reason I put 20 years is because, well, I don't care after 20 years, you know. Do you see the difference when somebody says physical systems, that you have a tremendous amount of insight beyond, oh, what is a physical system? Are we okay? What's in your mind? Tell me. Flo? Tell me what project you're working at work.
I just ran into this 2 days ago. So one of my projects is color changeovers on our molding process. And we did a bunch of time studies, and we figured out how to sequence our colors based off of a chroma scale so that it's less downtime. And I showed them, if you're changing from a certain level of chroma to another level, you've increased exponentially your downtime because of the process and how long that it takes. So we got all that set up so that the process is actually on the mold side's better, but the scheduling is the one who constantly is calling down and putting in these emergency orders. So I started going back up a little higher. And I mapped out her process, and she has 6 different people who are telling her what she's supposed to do, and they're getting all their information from like 8 different places. And so she'll set up a flow map. I set up the flow map to show the whole process, and took it into this meeting and said, hey, this is the basic flow, but we have, you know, 6 different inputs coming in here, and every person's wanting something different. And she's being told that she has to have by these time frames, but these time frames are constantly changing and varying based on what the salesperson is telling Walmart they can get it by. And there's no structure here that's ever been followed. Nobody ever mapped it out. And I said, so I set up some things saying like, here's some rules. If she follows these rules, here's your consequences of what you're going to have. And they took it all and they were like, well, that's great. And then the next day, they took and they changed from one color extreme to another color extreme. And they had 12 hours of downtime because of the time changeovers, and they wound up missing one of their orders. And I was like, well, you could have changed 3 times in between here, not had any downtime really. We would have had less than an hour of downtime as opposed to 12. And they said, well, they don't want to follow the rules, so they just accept the consequences. I went, okay.
I think I'm going to say something. I want you to fight. You don't fight. And I can say this because I travel, and I've lived in countries that have not had the resources. For the first 18 years of my life, I've lived in countries that have not had the resources. Can I tell you that when I travel, I find a lot more drive because there's a tremendous amount of hunger that I find here. Now, I'm not saying every individual, every organization, that's not true. On the average, there seems to be a tremendous amount of more complacency because we have. But what is that? What is the thing that I've learned? Tragedy of? I'm going to do a little bit. What difference does it make to society if everybody of us did the same thing? What difference does it make to society? So now, I want to take you through something else. And the point here is, you are not to be dependent upon systems thinking book. It is to structure your thinking but supplemented with a certain amount of tools. I want to show you something again that you have seen. This is a system. I'm not sure what the system is, except that I start with 1 penny, remember this? And I put it through, I put it through, and I put it through, and I put it through, and I get a penny out in whatever that is, 6 minutes or 8 minutes. And if I increase it to 2, that there's 2 of these, it seems to something happens. Okay. If I have 3 of these, something else happens. If I have 4 of these, something happens. Okay. And when I put all of this together, where is it? Here. What did it tell you about physical systems? What does it tell you? I'm not sure what this tells me. This is based on throughput.
Does it limit the growth?
That's correct. Now, throughput is the primary thing that majority of you are focused on. That is the stock that you're focused in on. What do I want? I want more documents per hour. I want what? More units produced at Y12. I want more research at ORNL. I want more product coming out of rubber. That's this. Oh, that's not correct. Here, when I look at this, it seems to indicate to me that after a certain period of time, as I increase my resources, nothing happens. Nothing happens. So I can do a lot of stuff. I can increase my width. I can increase my resources from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. But what is going to happen to my production is not going to increase. Is that true? How many people understand that concept? That there is within that system a certain level of fundamental relationships that define for you where is my maximum throughput with the minimum level of resources that defines that system. What am I trying to do? The best case scenario in terms of performance is I maximize my performance without adding what? Additional resources. Because if I add additional resources, am I increasing my performance? But I have a certain number that as I increase the resources, I'm going to get my... How many people would understand that? Because this, we are looking under the concept of, sorry. Under what? The size of flows, numbers and how quickly they can change. The size of flows. Well, what size? What are we talking about? I mean, when I'm looking at flows and I'm looking at buffers and all that stuff, don't we need to understand some fundamental relationships? Now, so as we go through this, this is the equation that you know. This must drive a lot of your thinking process. Right? What do you remember of this? Because I'm going to ask you this question, and I don't think there are many people. If I came to you and I said, what is the best performance that this system could ever have? What is the worst performance that this system could have? And what do you think is a practical worst case scenario or something that is reasonable for you to define? At this moment, can you define for me the processes that you are looking at or you're working in and say, what is the best case, what's the worst case, and what should it be? Yes or no? If the answer is somewhat, what am I going to tell? I mean, I'm going with Nina and my son to see my other son. What I'm going to do? I somewhat know where I'm going. somewhat know. You either know or you don't. So I want to show you this. Best case. Best case. These were equations that you know and expect you to be able to use them. Okay? Watch this. What is the worst case? Tell me, what is the worst case?
High variability, high disruption.
And how do you know that that's the thing? If I do this bad, this is bad, this is bad, and this is bad, what am I going to get? Maximum cycle time with minimum throughput. Which also means what? The level of inventory of things that you're talking about is going to go up. So now, when you go into I want you to try this. Go into the next project meeting that you have and say, guys, we seem to have a high disruption, we seem to have a high variation, and we seem to have not a good flow in terms of balance. And I can tell you that we really have a very bad situation because my cycle time is this, and my throughput through the system is this. Okay. So, I'm going to take you through. So this is the worst case. Tell me what's the worst case? This is where I would agree. Single piece flow. Right? When I put 2, when I put 3, when I put 4, it's still a single piece flow. What am I saying right here? That I am sending somebody what?
Through a queue.
Sending somebody what? A batch, a whip, a batch. Now watch this. Jeremy, you and I are going to organize this. Watch this. I'm trying to do well. Instead of you not knowing what I am going to do, I am going to tell you that every time I'm going to send you 100 of these reports. 100. Everybody feels, ooh, look, they're coordinated. They're coordinated. You are messing up that system. Because when I batch it at a level between Jeremy and I say, hey, I am going to give you 100 at a time, guess what happens to that system? Watch this.
Worst case.
Watch this. Again, I put these up because you know these. Say yes. Yeah, all right, good. What's that? But you said in a meeting, we get together in a meeting, hey, you and Jeremy organize? Yeah, we gotta figure out a system. What system did you figure out? Well, I'm gonna send him something every Monday, and I'm gonna send him 20 reports every Monday. Everybody, yay, great job. Off we go. What have you just done? Tell me, what have you just done?
You accepted the worst case?
You messed the system up. Okay, now, it would be better that you don't touch that system because I got this. Now watch this. Remember the practical worst case? Let me show you the practical worst case. The practical worst case says, let Jeremy and I not coordinate. I just send things to him whenever I have it, randomly. There you go, so I'm going to do it randomly, which we think is what? Oh my God, that must be terrible. Yes? Yes. Watch this now. Say yes. Say, what a beautiful equation. Say yes. Say yes. Yes. This is, again, your mindset. I don't need you to do all the calculations, but you need to understand that. What is this green line? How did I get the green line? How did I get, worst case. I organize it. Batch. How do I get the practical worst case? I don't care. Let's just leave it as it is. Is it possible, by the projects that you're doing and you're structuring, by the way you structure it, you actually bring the system from this level of performance to this level of performance? Is it true or not?
Yes.
Now, here's another question. How many of you done it? Say it. I've done it. This is the difference between insight into a process and I want to show you one more thing and then see this right here? We're going to talk about variation. Right now, I just talked to you about the relationships and flow. Notice that I didn't change any variation, did I? If I had changed that variation in addition to batching it, my God, what would I create?
Exponential increase to the cycle time.
Cycle. I'm going to ask you this question. Again, you don't have to answer it, but I want to think. The primary product that you produce at Rubbermaid, at Y12, or R&L, what is your cycle time? We don't need to know the number, right? You have to understand that I would assume it's this. What is the actual time that somebody touches the product to fix the product? I want you to take that number and divide it over the total number. And I would assume that it is less than maybe 10%, maybe less than 5%. What are you doing for the 90 or 95%? What are you doing?
Moving stuff.
Storing, waiting.
You're waiting for stuff to get fixed.
Here's the impact, because it's not only what fix. Let's talk about it. What's that?
Disruption.
Disruption. We're not talking about disruption. We first talked about flow. You notice that how I flow, unless it's balanced and single piece flow, don't organize it any other way. Let it flow naturally. Let the system that is a very complicated system that we don't understand, let it take its own thing. Don't arbitrarily come back and make it a mess out of it by putting some arbitrary thing that you learn in class. Are we okay? Now we're going to talk about variation, because if I had this and I had variation, okay? And remember this? Tell me, if everything now, watch this. I'm now holding this constant. Before, I held these two things constant, yes? Now, I'm holding this constant and this constant, but I'm going to play around with this. I'm just going to play around. I want to show you the impact of each one. Flow, my God, miserable, unless we change it. I'm going to now go do it, and again, it's a perfect system, no disruption, flow is perfect, if you remember. And if I had a push system, which primarily you have a push system, I don't come to Jeremy and say, Jeremy, call me when you need something. What do I do? What do I do? Jeremy, here it is. How many of you called your internal customer and say, when would you like me to deliver this to you? When did you do that? Now, I want you to think about physical systems and paradigms. Physical systems and paradigms. Is one of the paradigms that you were brought up with taking care of your neighbor? Yes or no? Is that a paradigm? Yes. So when you have a neighbor that's elderly, did you ever go cut the grass? Did you volunteer to help somebody? Why don't you do that at work? What's that?
You don't have a charge cut for it.
I think you do.
Again, this is not about this. I am changing,
I think we
I'm
have to
using
get
the
something
physical
done.
systems to go back to change some of your paradigms. Okay? Because if I do not take care of Jeremy, here, and notice I've kept what? Flow, constant, disruption, constant. Those are perfect. I'm now focusing on the variation. If I focus on the variation, watch this. That same process that would take me, what, around 94 minutes or so to process, with variation increasing to 50%, coefficient of variation increasing to 50%, goes from 94 to 423. That means I have quadrupled my cycle time. Okay, now, is a 50% coefficient of variation high? Anything, according to your books, factory physics, was 0.75 or less is low variation. And I would assume, and I'm just going, again, you have to defend yourself. I'm assuming that your coefficient of variation in your processes is way over 50%, so you, in essence, 200%, 300%, 400% of your cycle time that you are spending is because of that variation. Now, I'm going to be further mean to you. I don't even know what to call it. You don't even have a term or measurement that tells you the level of variation that exists in your process. So I am unaware of it, I don't measure it, and therefore let it kill me. And the only way I'm going to do it, as it goes up, what you remember from factory physics was that you have to supplement it with additional resources in terms of capital, inventory, and people. Now, can I ask this question? You don't have to answer it. How many people do you think are working in your organization because of that variation? Paradigm change. I'm not sure. I don't know. It could be zero. You may need more people. All I'm trying to get you to think is, I did not know my competency does not exist at the paradigm level. Nobody taught me that. So I try to do is go back to my physical systems that I understand well and test my own paradigms. So what I'm asking you is what I'm asking myself. How many people exist in your facility today to compensate for this level of variation that I have not even measured?
Ours wouldn't be people, it'd be machines. Because
Other
we
resources.
continue,
So
we
it could be
continually
equipment, it could
buy.
be machines, it could be capital, whatever.
We've brought in like 35 extra machines this year, and we probably didn't need any of them if they were able to reduce the variation.
Okay.
I would suspect that the number of people is positively correlated with the so more people are in that.
This is what people say, but we don't have any measurements, so I can't say that that is true. And here's the question. You're trying to be effective, you're trying to be efficient. And I am not saying that we need to fire them. But I am using this idea of paradigm shift. Again, these are things that I was questioning myself. If I could release 10% of my workforce, and I still wanted to keep them online, can I have them do things for the future of the company? If I don't do it for the future of the company, can I go help them send out and help them with high schools and STEM and other things that society may need? Is that a better allocation of resources? So do you see that difference? Now, how can I fix this? I can go, there's two things that we can do. Let's at ORNL, Rubbermaid and Y12, introduce this concept of variation. So let's start measuring it in critical processes. Or, watch this. pull systems. There's your push system. Do you see that? There's the impact on the pull system. That I have minimized by doing two things. Jeremy, you're really inconsistent. I can both fix Jeremy. Or I can say, Jeremy, I'm inconsistent, you're inconsistent. I want to create this system called a pull system, and I can reduce the impact of variation on that system to allow you to increase your cycle time. This is something you know. You have to bring it back to your organizations. Are we okay? So do you see that we kept what? We first focused on flow. The second, we focused on what? Variation. And now, I want to show you something. Okay. We're now talking about disruptions. So I'm going to hold this constant, I'm going to hold this constant, and I'm going to focus in on this. What can you tell me about disruptions?
According to the map that was presented, the short, frequent ones are better.
Excellent, excellent. I like this. Nobody remembered it.
You can manage it, right?
Huh?
If they're frequent, you can manage it.
Let's talk about two things. First, disruptions in the system themselves are bad. The question then becomes, how do I measure that disruption? It is, if I'm looking at machines, I'm looking at the availability of that equipment, isn't it?
Yep.
What availability do you think is good? What % availability of the theoretical capacity of a machine do you think is good?